Well, we're going to give you some powerful stuff today. I want to talk about this morning about modeling your business for maximum impact. And so we're going to cover several things that I believe will really be impactful to you. But let's start with a scripture, Luke chapter 14, in verse 28. It says this, and this is in the New Living Translation. It says, "But don't begin until you count the cost. For who would begin construction of a building without first calculating the cost to see if there's enough money to finish it? Otherwise, you might complete only the foundation before running out of money, and then everyone would laugh at you." They would say, "There's the person who started that building and couldn't afford to finish it." One of the reasons that I share this with you is that that's the way it is with business. As I talk about these things today, is I see many people who come, for example, they'll come up to me or they'll come up to Paul Milligan, for example, and they're all excited about what idea they have or what opportunity they have. And in that process, when we start talking to them about, really what it takes or really some of the things they need to be considering, all of a sudden they go, whoa, well, that's too much. Well, I want to encourage you in this because some of this is personal development. I have a picture that's somewhere in here. It's about the difference, for example, between, having a job. Sometimes having a job is you feel like you're, running on a hamster wheel sometimes. And then it shows the entrepreneur who doesn't have a job but has their own business of some sort, investing business or other types of business, product or service, and they're actually pushing this heavy stone wheel up the hill, and that's what it feels like sometimes when you first start. You start, and it's like, oh man, I'm learning. There's so much to learn. There's so many irons in the fire. There's so much to do, and so this morning I want to talk to you about 4 keys, what I call for organizing or modeling your business for maximum impact. And this morning in this first session, we're going to talk about hover over the idea. And so that's number 1. Remember, we talked about hovering yesterday. We're going to cover that again today. But I'm going to give you a new tool. We've been talking about the business model generation canvas. In that one, I'm actually going to share with you about what's called the lean canvas, and I'm going to give you a website you can go to. And then number 2 that we're going to talk about is really focusing on identifying your business model, and we're going to give you a ton of information on that as well. And then number 3, and this is one of my pet passions, is number 3 is really positioning yourself correctly in your business. If there's ever been mistakes that I've seen happen with entrepreneurs, is that they don't position themselves correctly, and I'm going to give you some resources for that as well. And then number 4 is you must possess a systems orientation appetite. Now, don't let the word systems scare you off, right? So we're going to talk about that and what that means in business. So let's start with number 1 about hovering over the idea and using the lean business, what we call the lean business model canvas as an example. Now, this is different than just the general canvas, so we're going to talk about hovering. Remember, we shared this with you in one of the earlier sessions. In the beginning, God created, Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was out without form and void. That's where, for example, some of you today in this first session, whether you're innovating in your business or whether you're starting a business new or whether you're considering starting a business, you're starting without form and void. That's where you're starting. And the Bible says, and darkness was on the face of the deep. Now notice that. So in other words, there was nothing there at all. And the Spirit of God, watch this now, was hovering over the face of the waters. And so we talked about, that word hovering, and that's where God on the inside, we talked about Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 12. Where God actually considered, He measured the oceans and He measured the sand and He considered all these things. He was thinking. It was, but what I call, kind of a big business word, is ideation. It means he saw the picture. That's why Hebrews 11:3 says that the things which are seen were made out of things which do not appear. In other words, they were all inside of God. So to help you hover, we're going to talk about for a few minutes today what I call the lean canvas. And we're going to give you a website here in a few minutes that you can go to where you can actually do this online. Now listen to me, the lean canvas, and we'll mention this again, is more for those that are just beginning, more of an entrepreneurial. You can use this for your real estate business. You can use it, of course, for your normal business. You can innovate with your business, but it's just another way to use these 9 boxes that we've shown you on the business model canvas. It's another way to think. And so I'm going to introduce it to you here for the first time, and then we're going to break it down a little more. And so I know it looks like one of my slides kind of might be a tad messed up here, but I want you to see here, and I've got a couple of pictures of this. Let me see what else I have here and find it. Yeah, here's another picture. Let me bring this one up that I think is a little bit better if I can find it. Here it is. And this one doesn't have the stuff in front of it. You can see this, and if we look here on this, and I think, well, I thought I had a printer. I don't have a pointer here, a laser pointer. But if you can see, there's some different boxes on here. So I want to start with the right side of the canvas, starting with where we actually talk about the value proposition. And notice it says here, unique value proposition. And then it has channels. Remember, you go over here to customer segments, just like we were before, we talked about, but then, and you have channels. So these 3 boxes here are all the same. But then up here, where in the normal traditional canvas, where it talks about customer relationships, this is where we talk about the unfair advantage. What that means is, in this case, what is your unfair advantage? In other words, how are you going to position yourself against the competition so that you're able to actually be successful? So if you kind of get in here and read that box, it said it can't be easily copied or bought. In other words, the question is for you is, do you really have an unfair advantage? So the whole idea is when you're thinking and you're hovering here, right? You're hovering. These boxes here, the value proposition, what value are you bringing, what customer segment are you bringing are you going to reach, which we talked about yesterday, what channels are you going to go through to reach the customer segment, which Chris taught you on. Then the change here is in the box here on the right side. We talk about where the marketing piece is, and you can see down here where we talk about market right at the bottom. This is on the lean canvas. You can see that, and so when you look at that, this helps you to start ideation, or it helps you to start considering, pondering, hovering, and so you think about your unfair advantage. Now, most people say, look, I just have a good idea. No, you need to think about the value you're bringing and what kind of advantage does it bring. Then, if we look here on the left side of the canvas, and I don't know, can somebody bring me that laser pointer? Do we have one? The green laser pointer, anybody know where that is? We're live here, even on video, so if I can get the laser pointer, that would help me. But I want you to see here on this side is the answer is what is the solution? So in other words, here we have the top 3 features. In other words, on one side here we have unfair advantage. The other side is, okay, what is the solution that we're bringing to the customer segment, right? And so when we look right here, the top 3 features, what is the solution? And I'm assuming we're picking that up on camera, okay? Is that right? So the top 3 features. And so when we're talking about this, you're thinking about, okay, my value proposition, what are the top 3 features that I'm bringing? So I gave you yesterday Subway. Subway came out. There wasn't fresh, healthy food, right, that was being used. And so they came out with that. One of their features that they gave was fresh, healthy food. And then one of their, another feature, or benefit of it was, you could lose weight. That's why they had Jared on there. But then along came Jimmy John's. And Jimmy John said, okay, we're going to bring some other solutions. You had fresh food. We're going to bring fresh food. It's going to be healthy. But we're also going to what? We're going to deliver. And Subway didn't deliver. And we're going to make it freaky fast. So this is where you start thinking about your top 3 features. And how do these top 3 features distinguish you from actually your competition? What are those? That's why when we come over here to the unique value proposition, we have a single, clear, compelling message that states why you're different and worth paying attention from the customer. So when we look at that, this is another way to hover or to think through what's happening. And then we come down here, these are key metrics, and these are key activities you would measure. So for example, I'll tell you what we do in Wealth Builders. One of the things we've learned is many people, for example, they'll use as a key metric their Facebook followers, and that's important. But one of the things you have to know about social media, and this is worth the price of the ticket, you can't control the social media platforms. We're talking here about key metrics. You can't control the social media platform. So you say, well, okay, Billy, what's the point? Well, the point is Facebook can change an algorithm on you. Instagram, even YouTube can change an algorithm on you, and it'll mess things up. But one thing that you can control and always have, and I call it a key metric, if you're a content provider like we are at Wealth Builders, is what we call your email list. That list, that's a warm list. That list is something that's powerful. You say, and the point is not just Facebook followers, for example, but it's also how many email subscribers do you have. That's a key metric. Now listen, without sounding like I'm stating the obvious, another key metric basically is key activities you measure is sales, right? So let me just say this without getting too far in the weeds, but to help you, there's what we call leading indicators. So your Facebook following, for example, would be a leading indicator, right? Another one would be your email subscriptions. For example, I'm using this for this type of business, Wealth Builders, for example. But then when you look, an actual lag indicator or something that's important as a key metric would be, for example, sales. In other words, how much revenue do you have coming in? That's the obvious. So this is a canvas that is allowing you to basically think the same way. So the differences are the value proposition, the customer segment, and the channels are the same. But then helping you in the beginning of your business to hover over it, to think about the unfair advantage that your business is bringing. In other words, what are you bringing? And it's good to think about this box and this box at the same time. So what's my unfair advantage? What are my solutions that I'm bringing? If you can think about those two boxes as you're praying and thinking about your business, then what kind of key metrics are you going to solve? And basically, I like over here, you can start with the problem. What are the top 3 problems that you're solving? So for example, going back to Subway and Jimmy John's, for example, if you go back to them, the problem they were solving is that for Subway, Jimmy John's was solving, is for Subway, you had to go into the store to get the sandwich. Jimmy John's was solving that problem by saying, okay, people don't want to have to go, especially people that work in offices or even from home, delivery. And so they took the pizza idea of delivery that Domino's made famous, for example, so to speak, the whole delivery option, and they made it freaky fast, so they were solving the problem. So what this does, this canvas will help you begin to think in different terms. And so this canvas is kind of showing you again kind of what the difference is. And here we've marked out in X's on purpose what the traditional canvas was, and then it helps you actually to look and see, and I want you to see that. It helps you to actually look and see what is the difference between the lean canvas and the regular business model canvas. Now, I'm going to give you here another slide that'll kind of list the differences, and I want you to see this. So this is what if you look here at the canvas right here, and we look at the element on the target, the business model is targeting new, meaning the idea, the concept, is really new in existing businesses. The business model canvas, just so we're clear, can be used with you starting a business, but it can also be used for a large corporation that's got 5,000 or 10,000 employees or even 100,000 employees, where you can start actually even using it inside of departments to get your departments more efficient. But the lean canvas is really for startup businesses specifically. And as I was praying about today, I decided that I would introduce this concept, and we're going to give you some great information here. And then the focus, again, the traditional business model canvas is basically for customers. Even investors can use it to analyze a business. Entrepreneurs, consultants, and advisors, that's why we use it, consultants and advisors. But that lean canvas is for the entrepreneur to kind of hover and this whole ideation piece. And then the customers here in the traditional canvas, it lays emphasis on customer segments, channels, and customer relationships, which is very important. But in the lean canvas, it does not lay as much emphasis on the customer segment because you have to discover when you're a brand new business. And if we have time, I'm going to give you some slides on this. You have to go through customer discovery. And so as you look down here through some of the differences, the approach, the traditional canvas lays down the infrastructure. It lists the nature and sources of financing and the anticipated revenue streams, whereas in the lean canvas, it begins with the problem. And that's where you can start here on the canvas. Let me go back to it. You can start here on the left side where the problem is listed. You can start there and actually do that on the left side. So getting back to that, it begins with the problem. You can see that there here. Watch my cursor. And a proposed solution, the channels to achieving the solution, and the cost involved and anticipated revenue streams. So you can go to the website, and I should have this on a later slide, but it's Canvanizer spelled with a Z. So it's CANVIZER.com, and you can actually find the lean canvas on Canvanizer.com, and you can go in and actually fill it in on your computer. Now, why did I take the time this morning to put that here in the Business Mastery Workshop? Because I realize that at least half of you, if not more, that are participating in the workshop, you are what I would call beginning entrepreneurs. You're wanting to think, Billy, what do I need to do to be able to get into business, to start in business? And so part of that is instead of just having a good idea, right? And you have an idea, and then you're going to jump all the way over to the business model canvas, which I consider to be one of the absolute most powerful tools in developing your business and continuing to grow your business. But in the middle is this lean canvas that you can use to help you hover and get your ideas where they need to be. So that's critically important. And so this next slide that I want to give you is on ideation. All ideation, I said earlier, is just coming up with ideas. How do you come up with ideas? How do you think, whether it's you're improving a business or you're starting a business from scratch. So here's a couple of ideation ideas. You can come up with an invention, because I've noticed many of the questions we're getting, even from our live streams and stuff, have to do with some of these things. So I'm going to teach this and help you that sometimes it's an invention. But remember, an invention alone, standing alone, is just an invention. What really matters is how is that invention applied in the marketplace, and how does it bring value to a specific customer segment? Or it's an improvement on an idea. In other words, you're actually improving something that has happened. And of course, there's quite a few. So right here, I just asked for this laser pointer, and you can see I can actually point to this screen. But if I could show you I have a couple other laser pointers that I had here yesterday. I could point at the screen, it doesn't even show. So somebody came up with this powerful laser idea that could actually be used on a screen. That's an improvement. Then innovation. Innovation is where you really take something, and we're going to talk about innovation, I think, in the third session today, but where you really take something and you innovate it it's innovated to the point that it almost becomes a new concept, a new product, or a new service. So ideation is really about determining what problem you will solve, or how can you solve a problem together. Now, here's some classifications of ideas. If you had inventions, a paperclip was an invention, right? A Post-it note. Remember when Post-it notes, some of you are watching are old enough to remember when Post-it notes first came out. I remember the Slinky back in the 1960s. The toy, the Slinky, was built. Now they're reselling it again to a new generation of people. Frisbees, right? In fact, behind our house, we have a golf course here in Woodland Park, and I see people all the time on the golf course playing Frisbee. So Frisbees were an invention. And improvement, right? If you think about a whitening agent in toothpaste, right? Or, so if now they have all these whitening toothpaste. Or snaps. This is one of the older improvements, snaps versus buttons. And then another one would be wheels on suitcases. Now listen, I remember when wheels on suitcases came out, and man, what an incredible concept, right? So that's where somebody took the idea of a suitcase and improved the idea, right? And now you can walk. Now it's not just the two wheels that you can kind of pull or drag behind you, but now you got four wheels where you don't even have the weight on you, and you can literally walk through the airport with a heavy suitcase on four wheels, and all you have to do is push it. It's amazing. Other kind of innovations, for example, were the difference between propeller airplane engines and jet engines. Computers, wow, right? That's a great innovation. We went from mainframes that literally took up 10,000 square feet. I remember the first time I was considering a computer back many years ago, back in the late 70s, early 80s, and they wanted to put a mainframe in. And I had to have this air conditioning and all kind of huge things to be able to do it. And now today, this computer I'm sitting here, right here on this table that I'm talking to you with, is more powerful than the mainframe they wanted to put in there. That's an innovation. Obviously the telephone, right? You remember the days of rotary dial, push button, went to push button. Now today, of course, I have my phone, I always hold it up, right? We literally have the cell phone. So one of the things that I just want to say to you is you can come up, and when we talk about this ideation or coming up with ideas as an entrepreneur, it's really important. And so here's some ways you can think about this. One is what we call the ideation example would be identify everyday jobs that you do. In other words, what are the everyday jobs, for example, that one of these three areas could apply to? And so one of the things that I need to do here in Colorado in the summer, the weeds grow like crazy. Now, it's not the same as it is, for example, in some areas that are hot and humid and weeds grow crazy, and we have a little bit of that, but in our yard. And so I read on Facebook talking about identify everyday jobs, killing weeds. You can do it with vinegar and salt. It's amazing. And you put a little Dawn dishwashing soap in there, and you can make your own. That's an idea. Now, it hasn't been taken to the market, but there are what we call healthier alternatives, for example, in weed killers. Number two, identify the steps that you must take to get those jobs done. In other words, identify an everyday job and how can you improve it or innovate inside of it. Then identify the steps that you must take to get the job, that particular job we're talking about, done. And then think this way, eliminate one or more of the steps and you have a product or a service idea. So one of the ways you could do it, let's just take, I have a cup right here, right? And in this cup this morning, I actually have coffee. Right? And so I had coffee. I put a little creamer in here with coffee. But now if you look at how is coffee brewed? Well, the way it used to be brewed is in a percolator. Now, some of you don't even know what a percolator is. But back in the old days, it was put on a stove, literally on a gas stove, and it would percolate up through and it would kind of come on itself. And then all of a sudden, a great innovation, everyday job, making coffee. A great innovation came and somebody decided that we would actually have the drip coffee, not the percolator, but the drip coffee. And now you can put, the fresh coffee in and the fresh water drifts through it and you have this nice fresh pot of coffee that's not brewing on top of itself like the old percolator. And then, voila, along came the Keurig cups. And the Keurig cups, now you still have the fresh water, whatever kind of water you want to put in, and you can put it down, put a cup in, wham, it's quicker, it's easier, and you can only make one cup. I mean, what convenience. That is an everyday job that somebody thought through the process and came up with an idea. So when you're considering, for example, what your business ideas are and you're looking at that, this is something that I want you to discover and I want you to think about in the process. Now, this last slide that I want to cover in my last couple of minutes is something that I really want you to focus on. And what I'm going to do here is just kind of follow my cursor. Is one of the things, if we're in this, okay, what kind of business, Billy, am I going to start? Asking that question, or how do I come up with ideas, or as an entrepreneur, how do I know? Well, one of the things that I want you to see is there has to be a customer discovery process. And what happens is, and I like to call this a beta test. You take your idea, you're using this lean canvas, you're coming up with the problems you're solving. Then you take that and see if there's a customer that's willing to buy that to actually pay you for it. That whole yellow that we have here emphasized is this is what we really call the ability to be able to, can I make money with this idea? And then look at what I put down here. Can I identify a scalable and repeatable sales model, which I'm going to talk about in the next session. But what's important is, did I validate that somebody really wants what I'm selling? In other words, is this solution that I've come up with and this ideation process, is somebody really want it? Is it benefiting somebody? And then we call this execution. So remember, this side is really the whole ideation. This is iteration. This is the reason it's called iteration here, not ideation, is you come up with an idea and then that idea changes and grows. It iterates and it comes into a point where you actually validate that the idea is going to work. And then the next thing that happens is when that idea works, you actually create a customer. And it's really at this idea, it's really at this level that you can move from the lean canvas over to the full business model canvas. Now, I like to start with the full traditional canvas, and then I'll use the lean canvas over here to create my ideas and then see how they flesh out. But what happens is that you have to validate your customers. You have to know that somebody's willing to pay you. And then if you have customer creation, now you have company building. In other words, you actually have a business and you're able to build your company. So today, of course, we're talking about this hovering, using the tool of the lean canvas to help you think about your ideas on paper in a much more efficient and effective way. And then as your company building, you get to customer creation and company building, you're able to use what we call the traditional business model canvas. So, hey, I hope this has helped you. And today, Karen Conrad, Metcalf, and Chris Bernard are going to come and join us at the break.
Hey, Billy, that was amazing. Do you know what? I haven't seen this before. Chris, have you seen this before?
I have. When Billy introduced the business model canvas, I started researching it, and I came across the lean canvas, and I came across there's other canvases for different tools, but I've never heard Billy teach on it. But he's taught on it in parts of the teaching of the business model.
Right, and the reason I did is because over the last year, as we've done live streams and other types of things, that we get all these questions that people bring in, been asking in maybe even 18 months, 2 years, where they ask about, well, how do I come up with an idea? How do I think about in this evolving economy, and now we're in COVID? And so I thought today during this workshop I would introduce the lean canvas to help them understand how to come up with ideas.
Wow, so good. Awesome. Billy, you and Becky asked people to share a little bit about their experience, and so I'm going to go through some of these. And Aaron David has said, glad to be here. Technically, he said, it's night on this side of the globe, yet excited.
That's awesome. He's on the other side.
He's on the other side of the globe.
Well, David, we're glad you joined us.
Yes, and then he just said the Blue Ocean Strategy, BMGC, being a resilient learner. Those are his highlights. And he said, and also to know your competitors. That's great, Aaron. Thank you. And then Marcy said every subject was excellent. Blue Ocean versus Red Ocean was very eye-opening. And that is a favorite, isn't it?
It is a favorite. And really there's a reason for that is because it's true. Right? In other words, you have to think, because many people come up with ideas that are in the middle of a red ocean.
Yeah.
That's so true. And then Sean Walsh says a highlight for me was a concept of partnering with the Holy Spirit and asking him to direct my actions for his business. A second one is from 1 Corinthians 3:6-9-11. God overcomes my incompetence.
Amen.
I think that's what Dave was teaching us.
Absolutely.
So we're so glad. Keep sending us messages in, and remember to get those questions. We're just looking forward to another awesome day today.
Absolutely.
Amen.